So we are here with Texas GOP Vote and vocesaction.org. And I am so excited that I am in the beginning of the new session at the Texas Capitol with the State Representative Larry Gonzales. It's so good to be with you, Representative,
Thank you for having me
today.
again. It's wonderful.
Well, first of all, I want to congratulate you for your re-election as a state representative.
Thank you very much.
And secondly, to say that we're very glad that you are back healthy after your major surgery, and it's so good to have you back.
I am. I had a major back surgery this summer, but feeling stronger and better than I have in a very long time.
Well, that's wonderful. Well, Representative Gonzales, one of the questions that I would like to ask you today is on regards of this new session. You know, I'm all the time being asked about, well, what the Republicans have on the table, or which type of legislations they are looking forward to have during this session. Can you share a little bit with our friends about what is going to be coming up from you and from the Republicans in general?
I think one of the biggest things that drives our entire session is going to be the budget. As always, everything starts and stops with the budget. We're in a little bit different shape this time. In Texas, we have a little extra money. So it's nice to have that there, but it doesn't mean that we have to go out and spend everything. We need to carefully consider our priorities, and we need to determine what we're going to fund and to what levels, and be very careful that we're good stewards of the taxpayers' money. While we have extra money, it does not mean it's just free spending. We have to be very frugal with that money and very careful with that money. So the budget is always there, first and foremost. And then you have to look at, I think, public education will be very important as well. There were significant cuts to public education last time. So the question this time is, do we put back? How much do we put back? Maybe we fund fast growth districts first to cover that fast growth areas. That's an idea as well. We're going to be talking a lot about water and water infrastructure. Yeah, you heard that mentioned a few times today in some earlier speeches by the Speaker of the House and the Governor of Texas. So water infrastructure is something that we're desperately going to address this session as well. And then we'll look at some other issues that have come up in the past. You know, there's always transportation, infrastructure. More people are moving here all the time, and you have to have the infrastructure ready to greet them and ready to serve them. That takes money up front. And so it's a delicate balance between the growth that's coming here and having to pay for that, but also being good stewards of the taxpayers' money. And that's our task, is to be sure and strike that balance between the two.
That's right. Well, one of the things, Representative Gonzales, that I've been thinking about, that I know that most people is expecting also that you, as a Latino, you are one of 3 Latinos in the Republican Party in the House, about what are they thinking about. We know that during election time, the Latino vote was a very, very important vote, and also that we lost the Latino vote, and the people are asking, what can we do? And certainly, sometimes we hear that the left in the media are saying that we do not like Latinos, we don't like the people, even though they have conservative values, but I know that is not the case. And I know that you personally have in mind certain things that they are going to change on regards of some of the immigrants here, and not only Latinos, as you probably will explain that to me, but the fact that we have undocumented people here in the United States who are going to school. They are receiving in-state tuition, and they came here because their parents brought them. So what are the plans that they come through your mind when you talk about this? And you can share with me a little bit more about what you have been thinking about, not only this case, but other type of problem that we have with the people who are here and that are looking for a job here.
Yeah, I don't, I consider myself a Republican legislator who happens to be Hispanic. Not necessarily a Hispanic Republican legislator. It's an issue, is a part of my life, but it's not all-encompassing for me, right? There are a myriad of issues that we're looking at. When it comes to the immigration issue, I'll say this. The federal government has failed us. The federal government has chosen not to act. And so what happens is people look to the states for answers. Well, quite frankly, there's very little we can do as a state to address, true immigration reform. Our hands are tied in many different regards. So what we do is we help where we can, and then we bring up issues that we think the federal government should be addressing. So one of the questions today on the House floor, someone asked me, what's the biggest thing you can do in Texas for this population of undocumented kids? The biggest thing we can do is not do anything at all, which is keep the in-state tuition in place. One of the arguments against that is that they haven't paid into the system, but they have. They pay taxes, sales tax and property tax, a gasoline tax. I mean, for years to be qualified, you had to have been here for a certain amount of time. And so for years they put into the system. If you don't make it affordable and accessible, you wind up with a population of kids that are uneducated and are poor. What does that do for your infrastructure? It's terrible. So it's going to add costs on either our social services. It'll add costs to maybe criminal justice. That's not what we want. We want these kids to be productive, working members of society. There's something we call in higher education, a term we call brain drain. And what this refers to, it refers to intelligent, hardworking people, innovative, creative, that have gotten their bachelor's, master's, PhDs here, who used to stay here. And they used to create jobs here and go to work here and bring all that innovation to our country. But as the rest of the world has become industrialized, specifically China and India, these students come here and they get these PhDs in engineering, let's say. But they can go back home now, and they can practice in India and China where they're from. And so all of a sudden they're bringing all these tools to their country. In a sense, we are exporting knowledge and talent to other countries. We're subsidizing it by paying for their education, but we're not doing enough on this end to keep them here. And this is not just an immigration issue or immigrant issue. This is kids from all over the world, young adults from all over the world who come here to our schools. We need to see what we can do about capturing them and having them stay here with an affordable education and use that innovation here to help this country stay great and create the jobs.
I think that is an excellent idea, and I know that there will be other people who will be asking, well, that's wonderful. These are the people who have the opportunity to have a higher education. But recently at the Republican platform, we have passed the Texas solution for a solution for those who are more like in the blue work area. What would be your thoughts regarding those workers who are doing those jobs in construction, who are working in yard work? I always tell the ladies, what is the best treasure that we have at home? And it's our children. Well, many of those children are being taken care of by the immigrant nannies, and all those people do not have a visa to be doing the job that they are doing. What are your thoughts about the Texas solution and the opportunity for those who are in the workforce at a different level, but they are very needy of jobs?
Well, as you know, in Texas we passed the Texas solution. So take Texas, the reddest of the red state, with 9,000 of the reddest of the red delegates, and we actually passed a temporary guest worker program. We recognize the need for that here in Texas. Now, there's a threshold to be met to qualify for the program. The threshold's pretty high. A couple of instances. It says that the employer of the guest worker must pay all their private insurance. The guest worker waives any and all rights to entitlement programs. They have to have a course and be proficient in English. They have to take an American Civics course. They have to, the employer must pay all necessary taxes, withhold taxes. So there's a really good threshold in order for them to work here. It's not something very easily attained maybe, but it's out there. And this is Texas's way of saying, we've come to the table and we're here to talk the issues. It's important that we pass it because, in my opinion, the Democrats will never come to us, to the table, and fix this solution for us. They won't. They won't do it because the unresolved illegal immigration issues are more powerful to them than resolved. They can win more elections, and they can rally more votes, and they can stir more fear and blame more Republicans if the issues stay unresolved. Resolved, they have little leverage against Republicans. So the significance of passing the Texas solution was it put us in the position to say, we've started the conversation, please join us. And I guarantee you they won't, because it's just better for them as a party for those issues to stay unresolved. It gives them a rallying cry. So there are some, it may not be perfect. There may be things that you like or don't like in that Texas solution, but it is an opportunity for the Republicans to say, we've started the conversation, join us, and let's see if they do.
Now, the Republicans are a majority here in the House and also in the Senate. And the question will be, will somebody bring the Texas solution or a modification of it as a bill to the floor during this session?
Well, there's going to be a resolution that basically outlines every single point of the Texas solution. You know, the difficulty is, while I can say all that, In Texas, we have little to no authority to do anything about it. It's a federal issue. So the resolution's being written, we can talk about it, and we can point to the federal government in the right direction, but at the end of the day, it's their responsibility to act on it. We just can't implement those kinds of laws here at the state level.
Right. You mentioned about education a little while ago, and one of the things who caught my attention, I do know as a fact that there is not a Republican agenda to get rid of in-state tuition, and I am so glad that you say the best thing is to do nothing, because it should remain, and I just hope to see that the majority of Republicans are in agreement with you on this. Sadly, the Democratic side all the time are just only publishing those few in the minority who are against this type of implementation. Representative Gonzales, how does Republicans should look at the immigration issue?
I think it's very important that we're careful with this, okay? Yes, laws were broken. And as Republicans, we believe in the rule of law, and that must never be overlooked. But at the same time, we are the most generous and godly country on the face of this earth. The undocumented population should come forward with a very humble spirit, admit their guilt, offer to make it right by paying any unnecessary fines and penalties, and hope that America has the level of grace and forgiveness that none of us deserve. A divine grace from God to people in need. You talk about rhetoric, and you often hear that the Republican Party needs to tone down their rhetoric on this issue. I don't disagree. However, the rhetoric tone has to go both ways, okay? I think there are many pro-immigrant groups who are almost militant in their protests and in their dialogue. They also need to realize that that doesn't get you anywhere. If the Republicans need to tone down how they talk about things and use a different rhetoric, so do the immigrant communities, because you've seen it many times on television. Some of these protests, these rants, and they're almost violent in nature sometimes.
I just saw it right here in the Capitol a few minutes ago.
It's just amazing, you know. And so, what does that get them? You know, just to any group, be very careful with the rhetoric you use. So the people who say the Republican Party has to be more careful with the rhetoric, I don't disagree. But that goes both ways. That goes both ways. And someone needs to sit down with immigrant groups and let them know that rather than yelling and chanting and screaming, coming here with a humble spirit, asking for forgiveness and saying, look, we broke the law, we're willing to make it right, what do we have to do, what are our steps, and then just count on a very generous and forgiving country to say, here's what we can do. But as long as the rhetoric is that difficult on both sides, it's hard to do that. It's hard to do that. So to both sides, I would say, be careful with your tone, be careful with your rhetoric. If you can sit down and have the conversation, that's what we're looking for. Very agreeable, right? Very calm, and have the grown-up conversation.
I do believe that photo voters ID is important. What would be your thoughts about this session? Would you Republicans bring it up to the table again so we can have transparent and clean elections?
I would imagine so, yes.
So,
you know, what we passed here with voter ID, it's been done in other states. We're not out on an island trying something for the first time. Voter ID is implemented in several states across the country. But Texas has a higher threshold to go to because we have a historical history of voter oppression, they say. And so we have to abide by a little bit stronger threshold of law. So we can pass something, and did, that can be passed somewhere else exactly the same, and yet ours is not good enough and theirs is. So we'll look at it again and again and again, because we fundamentally believe that it's about making sure that every vote legitimately counts and that your vote is not canceled out by a fraudulent vote. There should be nothing difficult about a voter ID and voter participation. Many of the arguments Democrats make, if you just continue the conversation longer than the soundbite, don't hold very much water. And we've exposed that again and again and again when it comes to voter ID. You know, I was deposed in the federal lawsuit. I got deposed by the Obama administration for 7 hours, and it was the most racially baited conversation. It starts and stops with race. Again, I said earlier, I just don't see the world like that necessarily. I mean, I don't know why that has to be a race issue, but they make it a race issue because that's how they get more play out of it. It's not a race issue. Voter ID has nothing to do with race. It has to do everything about legitimate ballots being cast. But the Democrats are very good about making everything about race because that's where they can kind of stir the pot and get everybody a little upset. But it's not about that. And so we'll follow it again. We'll see what the courts say, and we'll be back at it. Maybe some changes here and there if the courts may point out some other things we need to do differently. But there's nothing wrong with the bill we passed. The bill we passed is just fine. We believe that. That's why we passed it. The courts have disagreed with us. But at the end of the day, this is Texas, and we think we know what's best for Texas, and the federal government doesn't. We have many battles with the federal government right now here in Texas going on. This is just one more.
Yeah, well, I appreciate this so much. One of the things that when I am around in the country that people get so surprised about Texas politics is when I am in other states like Illinois and California, they get very surprised to know that state representatives and state senators do not get paid much money to be representing. So certainly I do appreciate so much because I know that you are doing this because you love your specific district, you love your state. But just for the people who do not know us, you that well, can you share a little bit what is what you do in your regular life besides being a state representative? Because you don't make money by being a state representative, you are giving to the state.
For 18 months out of every 2 years, I make $12 a day to be a state representative. That's my income at $600 a month, minus taxes and insurance. I happen to live within 50 miles of the Capitol, so mine is taxed even more heavily. So yes, it's a service. There's no doubt about it. So I made my living for years as a graphic designer. So self-taught and just got on the computer in the early 90s and started poking around and dragging and dropping some images here and there and throwing some text on there. And we've been very blessed. We've been very blessed for a long time in that field. But you come here and demands on this are difficult. Demands on your time are very difficult. This could easily be a 40, 50-hour-a-week job.
Yes.
No doubt about it. But at the same time, you're balancing, I got to make a living. You're balancing your family life. I still have to be daddy and husband as well.
Yes.
And so when you're not getting paid, that's a significant problem with that formula. And so credit to my wife and my in-laws who continue to do soccer practices and Girl Scouts and art lessons and piano lessons so that I can do this. So credit to them for keeping the trains running back home while I'm here.
Well, thank you to you and to your family, to your wife, and all the sacrifice that all your kids and everybody does so you can be serving us and the people of Texas. Thank you very much, Representative Gonzales.
Thank you very much for having me.
Thank you.